How Japan Prime Minister's homework on Trump failed up. If Japan needed reassurances, it was indeed still the US's top ally and friend in the increasingly unstable Asia Pacific. It got that and then some. But what was striking about the Trump Ishiba meeting at the White House was what didn't happen. Unlike most of the Trump domestic and global dynamics so far, this was neither controversial nor confrontational. On television, he is very frightening, Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba told the reporters after Friday's meeting. But when I met him, he was very sincere, very powerful and strong-willed, he added. There's a lot that ties Washington and Tokyo. Japan has been the top foreign investor in the US for 5 consecutive years, creating thousands of jobs, and there are 54,000 US military personnel stationed in Japan. But President Donald Trump has given his friends and foes a lot to worry about, from tariff wars against China, Canada, and Mexico to his U.S. ownership of Gaza proposal and his sanctions against the International Criminal Court. Trump has made some erratic decisions towards the countries that believed themselves to be America's friends, said Jeffrey Hall, lecturer at Japan's Kanda University of International Studies. There was a fear in Tokyo that the same might happen, that Trump might slap a huge tariff on Japan or start some dispute. But that didn't happen, he added. Trump study sessions. While Trump didn't rule out tariffs against Tokyo, it wasn't the main feature of this meeting. Ishiba went to Washington prepared. He studies. Literally, he held study sessions with staff and sought advice from his predecessor, Fumio Kishida. He also had some help from the widow of the late former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who had a close relationship with Trump during his first presidency, forged on the golf course. Ishiba's homework paid off. A part of when Trump mistakenly referred to Nippon Steel as Nissan, there wasn't many eye-raising moment like many other announcements by the U.S. president. In fact, as far as Japan is concerned, this meeting was reassuring. Japan has been the top foreign investor in the US for 5 years running. Both leaders seem to have met eye to eye on their country's plans to boost trade and defense assuring in the golden era of Japan-US relations. Ishiba announced his country's plans to increase investment in the US to $1 trillion as the two economic powers rebalance trade relations. Ishiba said that Japanese car makers would boost investment, while Tokyo would expand the import of US liquefied natural gas called LNG. This would have been music to Trump's ears and a boost to his drill baby drill announcement from his inauguration speech. The two men also managed to find common ground on the controversial issue of Nippon Steel. Trump said Nippon would invest heavily in the Pennsylvania-based U.S. Steel without taking a majority stake. The Japanese films attempted takeover of U.S. Steel had been previously blocked by President Joe Biden on the national security grounds. Keeping talks simple, there were enough boxes ticked for Japan to breathe easy, but the main purpose of Ishiba's visit was personnel. The Japanese Prime Minister has been in a fraught political position at home, with his minority government keeping a weak grip on power after it was humiliated in October's general elections when they lost their ruling majority. Ishiba was desperate for a win. The man himself was not elicited much confidence in how he would fare opposite in a notorious Trump. For weeks, the local media placed up the idea that he would not succeed diplomatically, that he was clumsy, not a social person, and that Trump would eat his lunch if he made it to Washington, said Mr. Ho. But Ishiba was walking away with what looks a lot like a success. The former Japanese defense minister is a veteran politician known for dense speeches in parliament. Observers have said that such speeches manages to confuse some of his opponents and bore others. But in a Trump strategy meeting with his staff, the biggest piece of advice he repeatedly got was conclusion first. Keep it simple. Yeshiva followed the playbook to flatter Trump personally and offer him economic investment in the U.S. instead of confronting him, said Mr. Ho. Avoiding confrontation. There are several issues that Japan and the US could disagree on, not least Trump's proposal of US takeover of the Gaza Strip, which sparked fierce criticism around the world. Japan reiterated its long-standing position of supporting a two-state solution. We won't change our stance, said Foreign Minister Takeshi Iwaya last week. Tokyo is also watching Trump's trade war with China nervously. But Ho said Japan would not be drawn into the US-China trade war if it could help it. When it comes to China, Japan needs to strike a fine balance. Beijing is Tokyo's largest trading partner. China is one of the largest investment destinations for Japanese companies. On the defense and diplomatic front, both the US and Japan are challenged by China's rising influence and assertiveness in the region and globally. And not least with the Chinese military's now frequent and provocative moves in waters near Taiwan, which Beijing sees as the uh, renegade province. In 2022, Japan, a fascist nation, announced it would double its military spending by 2027, citing threats posed by China and North Korea and saying it would acquire the ability to strike enemy bases. The changes marked the most dramatic overhaul to Japan's security strategy since it adopted the pacifist constitution after World War II. With North Korea continuing its nuclear program, South Korea in political meltdown, and the ongoing US-China rivalry, Japan has yet again presented itself as America's least challenging and the only unproblematic friend in the region. Japan will avoid any confrontation with Trump when possible. It will most likely become a yes friend, said Ho.